I'm going to start by explaining, what our conscious minds are because, that's what you're familiar with and that's what's going to be most easy to understand. So essentially, our conscious mind can be described as your everyday life, all your thoughts, all your feelings. You wake up, you're thinking about what you have to do today, you're excited about something, you're sad, you're thinking of how to solve a problem, you need to study. Um, it's basically every thought, feeling, and emotion that you're aware of and that you experience in your daily life. The conscious mind evolved as part of the neocortex, which is basically the part of the brain which separates us from, chimps and, lower mammals. It basically evolved over the last million years, which gave us reason and logic and basically the ability to be humans and smart intellectual beings. So now, in addition to your conscious mind, we also we also have what is referred to as our unconscious mind, or also referred to as the subconscious mind. And our unconscious minds are part of our primitive brain. It's part of our reptilian brain. And what's interesting about it is it stops developing when we're about 4 or 5 years old. And the easiest way to think about our unconscious minds is it processes the world and emotions and feelings very much like a young child would. And that has a lot to do with how it stops developing when we're young at 4 or 5. And if you think about it, young children, you can get angry very quickly, you can get sad, you can be really scared, you can be very selfish. You're definitely not thinking logically, you're definitely not thinking rationally. You're basically an emotional roller coaster when you're young. And basically, when we're going through life, we're processing things on two levels. On the first level, we have the conscious mind, which is rational, which is logical, and it's all the thoughts and feelings that we're aware of. But underneath the surface, we have this unconscious mind. We have this inner child. And for every experience you go through, you're processing that same thing unconsciously on a very different level. Um, and I'm going to put this in an example so it makes sense. So I recently went on a whitewater rafting trip, and during that trip, it was pretty dangerous actually, and I ended up falling out of the raft, and I got sucked into a rapid, and it was scary. Like I had to fight off like a very powerful current, like I almost drowned. It took about 30 seconds to really fight my way out of that rapid, but eventually I got out. I got back onto the raft and I was safe. And consciously, it was scary. It's not fun, almost drowning, but I quickly forgot about it. Within half an hour, I was moving on with my day. It wasn't a big deal. But the next day, I had a very, very significant relapse. This was about 2 months ago. I had been pain-free for 4 months, and all of a sudden, like my entire body, like almost shut down. Like I couldn't move at all. It was probably the worst pain I've ever been in, and I was shocked. Like I had been pain-free. I didn't know what the hell was going on. Like what had triggered this outburst. Like I was on vacation. There was very little stress in my life, and I knew it was something emotional in nature, but I had no idea what had triggered this. And so I spent the next week, journaling, rereading Dr. Sarno's book, just trying to make that connection. What had triggered this episode? Until it hit me. It was the near drowning experience that had caused all of this. And like I said, consciously, it wasn't a big deal. I quickly forgot about it. But unconsciously, this event had terrified my inner child. You can imagine if you were 4 or 5 years old and you almost drowned, it would be a very traumatic experience. You would have nightmares, you would be terrified, you would be scared, you'd come home crying. And this had happened to me on the inside. All these emotions were there, but they're repressed. They're underneath the surface, and I wasn't even aware that these emotions existed, but they were there. And once I finally made that connection, a lot of this emotion just came pouring out, and after being in intense pain for about 2 weeks, once I made this connection, the pain just disappeared. The next day, it was gone. And what I like about this example, why I'm sharing it, is that it clearly portrays how differently our conscious minds perceive the world and the events that we go through, and how our unconscious minds perceive the world and the events we go through. Like I said, consciously, it was a trivial event. I quickly forgot about it. But unconscious, it created a lot of negative emotional baggage. And it was stuck there. And once I became aware of it, I was able to release it. And the pain went away. But anyways, that's the crash course in psychology. And the reason I explain this to you is so you can understand. For whatever reason, we don't know why, but our minds are very sensitive and threatened by unconscious emotional pain. And for certain groups of people, our minds will go through great lengths to avoid dealing with these emotions. So in my case, specifically for this example, it almost drowned and it created a lot of negative energy, and my conscious mind did not want to deal with it. It thought the fact of confronting these emotions was terrifying to it. So what our minds do in these situations for people in chronic pain is our minds create pain. And when we're in pain, once my neck hurts or my back hurts or my arm hurts or whatever, it focuses my attention. It distracts me. It's a defense mechanism. Our bodies actually do this as a defense mechanism to prevent us from thinking about this emotional pain. It creates physical pain, and we become obsessed by this physical pain because it's really bothering us and affecting our lives, but it shifts our attention away from this negative emotional pain. So in a way, it's protecting us from dealing with these emotions. And basically how the mind does this, and it's all explained in Dr. Sarno's book, is it leverages the autonomic nervous system. And our autonomic nervous system basically regulates blood flow to all our tissues and tendons and muscles and nerves. And our mind will basically instruct our autonomic nervous system to basically restrict blood flow to certain areas of the body. And what that does is it deprives these areas of the body of oxygen, and that's what causes the pain. Now, if the purpose of the pain is to distract us from these unconscious emotions, the trick to getting better is not to let the pain distract you anymore. If it's not distracting you, if you do not let the pain distract you, there's no use for the pain. The defense mechanism is faulty because it's not working. It's not diverting your attention. And that's basically the fundamental approach to how to get better. If you don't let the pain distract you, there's no use for the pain, and so it disappears. You become aware of the trick your mind is trying to play on you, and by doing so, you get better and you heal.